that fight at the end, it's like Hashirama went over to the anime studio and said, look, listen, if you don't hire a good animation studio to handle my fight with Mads, I ain't showing up in the anime to tell the story. Like, straight the fuck up. You know what's up. Wooden dragons, heads bursting, 1,000-hand Buddha, perfect Susanoo Kyuubi mode, nukes pinned down on Susanoo swords, being sent elsewhere to blow up because of Rashomon. Hashirama Sage mode, looking beast as fuck. Amazing stuff. Just great ending to the episode. That is not why I like the episode so much. What made me like the episode so much was the dynamics, the dialogue, and the comedic relief between the Hokages and their interactions amongst each other and with Sasuke and Orochimaru. First question, who are Hashirama's and Tobirama's voice actors? Because Tobirama's voice sounded super familiar. Second thing, Minato calling Orochimaru Mr. Orochimaru. Epic shit. I mean, that point blank, that's just funny as hell. Second thing, Tobirama on the copyright infringement shit. Like, straight the fuck up. Get a lawyer and start earning revenue from all these ninjas. Yo, Minato, straight up, FTG, that's my shit. Every time you use a seal, I earn $5. Simple as that. Hashirama's like, yo, can somebody pull up Philip DeFranco and fill me in? Who is this Minato person? Who is this blonde individual? Minato's like, 4th Hokage, aka the guy who had the job for the least amount of time. Really? So who's Hokage now? Oh shit. Addiction no jutsu. Tobirama be like, shut up, I invented that too. Tobirama be talking some mad shit in this episode, bro. And I don't think I need to stress how powerful Hashirama is. I mean, the mere fact that Orochimaru was able to bind Tobirama just by having some of the first blood cells or whatever, right? That should be evidence enough. But even if it's not enough, like, Tobirama hockeys up, King hockeys up, and then Hashirama gets pissed and he's like, Tobirama! So, he's about to evolve. Like, you see, like, the aura, his nen, whatever you want to call it. And Tobirama's like, okay, bro, don't get worked up. You know I talk a lot of shit. Orochimaru's like, no, the first is not like the second. Like, if the first wanted to, he could tear me a new asshole right here and then. But Hashirama's so nice, like, I don't mind. Like let's have a chit-chat. I do think it's important to dive into the sort of ideological sort of questions that this episode raises. Because to me, and obviously I'm biased, to me, the better of the four, and the four that actually matter is Hashirama. Tsunade's okay, but to me, like, Tsunade is kind of like the equivalent of when a president dies and then the vice president becomes the president. So, I don't know. Like, to me, that's what happened with Tsunade. That being said, I think Hashirama is the best one because he's the one who revolutionized the functionality of what a shinobi actually was. He's the one who created, along with Madara, he's the one who created the idea of what a village is and what it should be. Which is why Sasuke asks him directly. Like, I need answers to these questions. So to me, like, Hashirama is kind of like Abraham Lincoln. And then Tobirama is kind of like Eisenhower. And then Sarutobi, I guess you could say he's kind of like, Franklin Roosevelt. And then, like, Minato, I'm not sure. But to me, that's just how, like, in terms of how they managed the village and what they ended up doing for the time that they were, in charge of the village, that's the way I categorize them. So, and so we have Tobirama just being kind of a bigot in this episode. But he actually, see, the thing about Tobirama's bigotry is that he actually explains himself, and he says that this is not a prejudice that just came out of nowhere. Like, this is something that I've experienced. This is something that I know. Uchihas are very emotional by nature. And it's so surprising, and it's such a good thing that Kishimoto managed to handle it this way. That the reason why Uchihas are so dangerous and are capable of so much hate is because they are naturally inclined to be able to feel love or love more than anybody else. These guys feel it real. Like, they feel it intensively. Which is why if an Uchiha happens to love you, you should probably get a restraining order, which is something that I think Rin should have done. But that's beside the point. So they feel love to such a great extent that if they lose their loved ones, there is a chakra-based reaction in their brain that affects their optic nerve. And therefore comes the Sharingan. The problem is, the more hatred an Uchiha feels, the stronger their ocular powers become. So it's a very, very tricky situation to get out of if you're naturally inclined to be super emotional. That being said, the problem with Tobirama and the way that he handled things was simply, like, point blank, the fact that he segregated people. Even if he, because he does say in this episode, I found something that the Uchihas were good at, that they could do for the good of the village. It doesn't matter. You don't segregate people of any specific group. And here's why. Even if the group is incredibly homogeneous, okay, the ability of each individual to do any task or want to do any task that you assign them, especially if it's like, this is, you're a group, you have to do this. In this case, he turned the Uchihas into the police. It doesn't matter because each individual in that group is different. They have different abilities, different capabilities, different levels of tolerance, etc., etc. Ultimately, though, and this is kind of like the tragedy of Tobirama in a way, is that he died, and we see this in this episode, he died believing that Uchihas are inherently evil. And if he had lived long enough, he would have been proven wrong. And maybe his mentality would have changed a little bit. And, there is no greater evidence to the fact that Uchihas are not naturally evil than the character of Itachi, which is why the third was fanboying all over him in this episode. Hashirama even said, your brother was a better shinobi than I ever was. So the fact that Itachi's existence could have proven Tobirama's ideology to be incorrect, to me it's a tragedy that Tobirama and Itachi never met. Because I think they would have liked each other for various reasons. Because if you think about it, Itachi, I think, is the only character in this show that was somehow able to find a way to simultaneously protect the village and protect the lineage of the Uchiha through protecting Sasuke. Obviously, you could say, but he slaughtered the entire clan. Well, yes, but in a sense, whenever you have like two opposites pulling at you, you have to find a way to compromise. And sometimes the compromise is against one of the two options that you have. So he chose to compromise against the Uchihas by slaughtering them. But at the same time, by assuring, Sasuke's life, he kind of won that fight in a sense. So the moral that this episode leaves me with is that just because there's always been conflict and just because something has always been a certain way, it doesn't mean that it has to stay the same. Okay? You can compromise. Try to come up with some type of a solution, even if it's not the best solution. I loved the episode. One of the best episodes, I think, of part 2, in my opinion. I mean, which is funny, right? Because the main character's not even in it, but I just loved it, and I loved it in the manga. So yeah, just my opinion. Thank you for watching. Comment and liking. Catch you guys later.